So tell us why we're here today.
Well, we're here to talk about apple pie, but
Apple pie. Oh, there's the council member. Council member. Sweet potato, pumpkin, or apple? Or are you going to Carter's house for the cheesecake?
I'm on my way, Carter.
Oh, he's coming to get the cheesecake.
okay. So, so we had a board meeting I guess it was last week, and Ed Axelrad, the other Ed on the line here, is the chair of our Tantalum Control Committee. Tantalum is not an HOA; we're a citizens association, but the Tantalum Citizen Control Committee, enforces the Tantalum covenants, which are run with the property here on maybe 900 properties in Tantalum, and they're basically it has to do with the beauty of Tantalum, and that we don't want people to put orange paint on their house or do things that clash with the general motif of the area. So the Ed chairs the committee. There's several members on there, and they try and kindly remind people to pay attention to the covenants and ask for permission before they change something on the outside of their house. However, because in that role, everybody in Tantalum and people even outside of Tantalum pester Ed and the control committee for anything that seems out of ordinary or garish or unsightly in our area. And Ed tries to refer them to the county when it's a county issue, and most of them are. But it turns out Ed spends an inordinate amount of time trying to resolve problems when the county doesn't do their job, and that impacts the control committee's ability to do its assigned job. And that's kind of a background. I'll let Ed speak to more specifics because he was down in the he got his hands dirty with this. So I'll turn it over to Ed.
If I might be more specific, I'm the president of the Tantalum Citizens Association. The Ed and the team. There's 8 of us currently on the control committee. We have an incomplete toolkit that is. The periwinkle door we can address because it's not permitted. The previous door was painted with crude lettering in big letters, and we told them that was not acceptable. And some trash issue we can address, but cars parked on the lawn, for example, or these cars that are on blocks are not something that unfortunately the covenants were created in 1964, and they're imperfect, and we don't have a complete toolkit to, even if we wanted to and had unlimited funds to go after people, we don't have the tools that the county does, even if we wanted to exercise them. So the county has the ability to address a wider range of issues that we simply can't. And we have a very modest budget. We have $10,000 a year, so we can't sue everybody for every infraction. And while we can enforce color, we can enforce the improper cutting of trees, we can enforce a certain amount of trash and debris. The trash and debris and the cars parked in the lawn and cars on blocks, for example, are county issues and issues that we literally don't have the tools to enforce.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carter, would you prefer Mr. Carter or Mr. Farrington? Is it?
Just Carter's fine. Thank you.
Oh, my mother would kill me. But so let me ask you. The doors that you're referencing and the cars that you are referencing on the lawns, can you give us those street addresses? And is this something that's happening right now?
Yes, this is one house and it's had a number of problems. In fact, I listed, if you don't mind me turning, I made a list of all the current and past problems with this one house. The current problems, there are cars parked daily in the grass. There are trash and debris in the property. By the way, this is one address. It is 12456 Surrey Circle Drive. That is at the corner of Surrey Circle Drive and West Tantallon Drive. The current issues as of today are cars parked daily in the grass, trash and debris on the property, the garage door painted periwinkle when the trim is white and the shutters are rust colored. Now, that is probably something we have to address. And I forgot to mention that there's also a car that's been parked for a number of days, and it has no tires. It's been up on blocks on the thing, and I believe that may be a county violation. Unfortunately, I looked through our covenants, and that is not technically a covenant violation, but it's certainly unsightly. Past issues have included sign paintage and crude letters on the garage door, an ongoing yard sale going on both in the driveway and in the street for weeks, prior trash, damaged furniture, and a car door, and a woman lying apparently in medical distress in the yard, which some neighbors tried to address. Now, in the past, I know a number of people have reported this, including, I believe, Ed Axelrod, but Jamie Christ has repeatedly reported these issues to the county. And he was startled perhaps a month ago when he looked up the property and learned that the complaint had been closed. Now, I think the county has reopened that complaint since then, but we've had a number of problems, and this problem has been an ongoing problem since the beginning, late spring, early summer, and has only intensified in August with the painting of the periwinkle door and the car and blocks. Now, we sent them a demand letter. We'll probably sue over the garage door. And what they've done this week, unfortunately, is we gave them to November 1st to correct the periwinkle door and the trash situation. And unfortunately, they're leaving the garage door open, and it's just a real mess in there. So that's our current situation with the house at 12456 Surrey Circle Drive.
12456.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We can make sure we send that over to DPI. And are there any other addresses that you can give us?
I think that's the primary one. I can give you another one for someone who I believe has been building without permits for about 4 years. He had permits originally. That's a separate issue. I wasn't ready to discuss that today, but I can send that to you separately. It would be nice for him to complete. I think it's been 4 or 5 years, and his initial permit's expired, and he seems to be just doing whatever he wants at this point. So we may also have to take action on that in terms of a lawsuit. But I think we pretty much were trying to focus on this particular house today because it's a significant problem, and I'm getting a lot of complaints about it. So I just wanted to I did want to focus on that, although I can focus on the other one. Does anyone have any other issues?
It sounds like Colin's familiar with the one house that you mentioned already. Colin, did you want to kind of give us?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Councilman, and thank you, Mr. Carter, for sharing this. You know, are you familiar with a lady by the name of Sarita Burns? Anybody on this call?
Yes.
Okay, so she definitely has raised this issue, and a few other people have raised this issue regarding this property, and it's been one of the most frustrating things for me, and I can imagine it's that much more frustrating for you all having to deal with this right there in your neighborhood. And what I keep hearing from DPI is that they have to go in order, and this is something that the council member and the team have discussed before. Some of the ways that DPI prioritizes matters, and basically they're saying that this is not in the front of the list, and there are a lot of other things that need to be addressed first. So they've committed to addressing all of the violations regarding 12456 Surrey Circle Drive by December. But, as is the case with you all, Ms. Burns and several other folks were not satisfied with that timeline, given how long these issues have persisted. I know that I more recently became aware of this issue, but according to Ms. Burns and a few other folks have been raising this issue since at least July of this year. And I conveyed that to DPI, and they were pretty persistent that, this December timeline was the best they could do. So perhaps, there's some ways that the council member might ultimately be able to elevate that and push it up. But I know they were very, very adamant that, we don't let people jump the line. And, it's been a trying process dealing with this property because, again, I've heard quite a few folks talking about it. So that's my understanding of where things stand with. I know that there's a plan. It's just that the timeline is underwhelming, to say the least.
If I could just add to that, I think a lot of our frustration, at least the ones I am aware of, are when we submit a request for service and it gets closed without any visible change in anything happening. And does that mean that they got us and we're in line, or that forget it, we're not going to take care of the problem? I sent one in this morning on litter and illegal dumping. This is on the shoulder of Fort Washington Road, where some construction worker dumped concrete blocks along the shoulder of Fort Washington Road earlier this summer, and the lady who's who lives on Surrey Circle, whose property backs on Fort Washington Road, put in a service request, and it was closed and without any action, and so she's submitted another one and referenced the first one. And
are those blocks still there?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you send those numbers?
I forwarded her service request to you.
Okay, you already did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's just one, just kind of a minor, in my view, not to her, but it's just one of many, many examples. And when we hear this on the South County Community Roundtable, it's a widespread issue when people ask for service and the service request gets closed and nothing happens. We just don't know what, it's like a black hole that you put in a request and it disappears.
Well, just to speak globally, we know that there is a significant problem with DPI. There's a significant disconnect in 311 that's happening all throughout the county. And I do know that under the new council, there will be additional oversight and very, very strong effort from the new council to get DPI to where it needs to be. Some of it is there are massive vacancies all throughout DPI currently. And so while some of the people who are there are working extremely hard, it's just not enough of them for the amount of tickets that they receive. And so things are falling through the cracks. I know that our incoming chair, vice chair, and the chair of our TIEE committee, which DPI falls under, will be reaching out to the county executive for a private meeting as it relates to this, because we're inundated with DPI concerns, and not just what you described, but also the permitting process and everything else. And so we know it's a real problem. Thankfully, we think we have a council that will be willing to hold the exec accountable for some of these things. We're in the legislative branch, and so a lot of these issues fall squarely under the leadership of the county executive. And so, we have a plan where we're going to go to her first with some recommendations, especially as it relates to vacancies. So, for example, there are over 35 vacancies in DPOI right now, but if you go to the county website, there are no job postings to hire people for it. It's like they're almost intentionally keeping them vacant so that they could hold on to the salaries. The money that's set aside for the salaries, because these are already budgeted positions. And so, ensuring that DPI is adequately staffed is among, some of our recommendations. And there will be an opportunity. And actually, Ron, I know you're very familiar with Councilmember Denoga, and I was talking to him right before this started. And he's also very concerned about this issue. And made clear that we would have an opportunity for our citizens to come together in a public forum to testify about some of their concerns and recommendations as it relates to DPI. Great. And sometimes when we do that, there was kind of a internal discussion about, do we meet with the county executive? Do we have the public hearing? And, I was very forceful that we needed to have the public hearing and meet with the county executive, because I think it's the public forum that raises the, we've seen it time and time again when Tracy Wilkins or Fox 5 covers and highlights a story, the county government acts more swiftly in addressing the concern. And so I think we're gonna do both. And I'll make sure that every one of you will be notified about when that's going to take place. But it's stories like the simple story that you just raised, like, hey, there are concrete cylinder blocks outside of this woman's house. She filed a complaint. It says resolved, but the blocks are still there, so it's really not resolved. And I even at one point in time when we were in our majority caucus, say that we should probably have an audit done of the department by like some outside experts about what we can do and where the deficiencies are. But it seemed like the individuals who are leading the DPI reform already had a list of recommendations that they wanted to try to advance first. Under the new council, we've split up areas of responsibility. And so DPI, while it's not one of mine, it's something that I am working on with them, and I will be supporting their efforts. But Councilmember Eric Olson will be taking the lead on DPI reform. And he served on the council before. He has a lot of recommendations about how to strengthen the department. But I just want you to know that this is a systemic issue that I hear from homeowners, from everyone, business owners, nonprofit owners, churches, all struggling with this department. And so, to the extent that we can provide the oversight, and accountability on the council level, that's, the space that we can occupy.
If I could just give you my impression of dealing with the county is that whenever we have an opportunity to interact with them, they host the meeting, and we get a big PR presentation of how well things are, how they've got everything squared away and all they're doing for us, and at the end we get 5 minutes to tell them what our problems are, and they're not hearing us. They want us to hear them, but they're not listening to us. And when we ask a question, we either get no answer or we get pablum. We get a slick glossy of how great Prince George's County is, and it is great. That's why we live here. Most of the people on this call don't have to live here. We choose to live here, and we were here in this meeting and other meetings because we love this county and we want to make it the county that it ought to be. And if the county executive and her staff would listen to us, we could make this a better county.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a common practice, the dog and pony show, to kind of avoid addressing the real issues. I mean, this is the practice that is very pervasive through the county, including the school system. It's like, hey, look at this bright shiny flyer. Oh, forget your issues. I mean, it's the style of this administration. Frankly, that's why I'm very hopeful under the new council that we will start exercising our oversight responsibility. For so long, the councils have operated as a department within the executive branch, not as a separate but equal branch of government. And so this DPI concern, along with others, same for development. We have developers who have written our development laws and policies, and they have been able to run amok and put anything anywhere in our communities. And we've been very, I would say, in the first couple months of the new council session, you're going to see a lot of activity to put the power of development back in the hands of the people. With rewriting some of the laws. And, there were laws that were attempted to be passed all the way up into the 11th hour of this council session that we were able to stop. Some we were not able to stop, but, there's a plan for that too. And so, I hear you loud and clear, and I know you've heard it all before. And so I'm hoping that you'll give the new council, some time, and not a lot of time. I would assume that those hearings and the meeting with the exec will take place as, early 2023. Same for, the school system. I mean, we've let the school system run amok as well for so long, and the council has played no role there. I think we're going to do our best to play a role there. And same for economic development, same for a lot of our labor issues.
The LDC.
You said the LDC?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, the LDC, hey, I can go on and on.
I'm optimistic with the new council coming in. I hope I have another 20 years here to see how things work out. It just, I feel very optimistic about how things will be in the future. I appreciate your efforts in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the LDC is going to be a huge opportunity. If you look at the LDC's budget, and the entire District 8 office knows the LDC process front and back and every line item in it, because it's been such a major focus of all of ours. If you look at the LDC's budget, a lot of the things that are in that budget, millions of dollars, are things that the county government are already supposed to fund. It should not be taken out of that local impact money. And we are funding the police station, the fire station. We are, prior to this year, we were funding painting the interior of schools. Now, these are things that our tax dollars already paid for. One of the things that I hope to do under the LDC moving forward, I want to take out, we met with the county executive staff, I believe it was last week, and we told them that anything that the county government is supposed to pay for, let the tax dollars pay for it. Take it out of the LDC money. I mean, that's going to free up millions and millions of dollars that we can use to uplift our district. And one of the things that I know Councilmember Olson and Denoga and Oriata, I mean, the whole gang have talked about, and I don't know if that'll happen in this budget, but I know that I could probably fit it in once we free up the LDC money, is that we could hire inspectors that are just for District 8. You know, in addition to the other inspectors that are across the county, I want my own DPI inspectors, and you have their phone numbers so that when something happens, it's not a long process and we're not competing with thousands of work orders from across the entire county. We could fund something like that out of the LDC. And that way, you know, Colin by far is the best constituent service director on the council floor. And he is managing so many different things. His life would be a whole lot easier if he can pick up the phone and call a District 8 inspector and say, hey, go to, you know, 12356 Surrey, you know, I can't think of the street, Surrey Drive. Or, hey, this just happened. You know, the concrete bulge says it's been closed out, but nothing has happened. And so that's definitely something I'm looking at for the next LDC budget, is how do we leverage that money to get additional resources. And, you know, I would, you know, love your help and support around that. And a lot of our civic leaders really did stand up and kind of, you know, write letters of support for the little changes we did make in the LDC budget. We only changed 35%, but there's a lot more in there that we can do. One of the other things that I'm interested in doing, and you know, I just kind of thought about this overnight. You know, we had a young man who was murdered raking leaves in Hillcrest Heights and in Temple Hills. You know, 13 years old, raking leaves with his dad outside. His dad goes in temporarily, hears a gunshot, come out, his son's on the ground. One of the things that the police were doing, they were actively going out looking for ring cameras footage. So that's one thing that happens when you have a shooting like that. They go and they knock on every door on the street that has a ring camera that's recording. You know, one of the things that, and I remember when I was in the state's attorney's office, there was a shooting in Landover, and we knocked in a row of townhomes. We knocked on every single townhome with a ring camera. And I really didn't think about how important those surveillance devices are. But in DC, there is a program where the city government offers a rebate for individuals who have these ring cameras. And it's something that, you know, we need to explore in the District 8 office, you know, at least, you know, maybe starting with our seniors, maybe starting in high pocket crime areas with incentivizing individuals to get these ring cameras because they're so helpful to the police when solving crimes. And even for our seniors, you know, I know we have some seniors whose children kind of help monitor the ring camera to make sure nothing's happening outside of, you know, grandma's house, that sort of thing. And so this is something that, you know, we're looking at for, you know, the LDC as well. But a large part of that is going to be freeing up the money from government services, you know, taking that off of our books so that we can fund other things. Look forward to working with you all on that as well.
Thank you so much. Miss Mays Jackson, Miss Sharon, did you have something? I'm just going to go around, give everybody another, like each of you a minute if you had something you wanted to say.
No, there are some trucks on, I guess you would call them some work trucks that someone owns, and they park them on our street, Inverness, and a lot of times it's parked on the corner and blocks the view. And I know that a neighbor had told me he almost hit somebody because these trucks are for the individual's business, and they're pretty, I can't describe a truck to you, but they're pretty long. I don't know, Carter, maybe you can describe it, but I can't even tell you how many feet, but he has like 2 of them at any given time. And it's a hazard and it's a concern. So that with what has already been presented is what I would contribute. But I think also when 311 is notified, somehow we need to get some kind of response to at least give us an update on what's happening. So that's all I have right now. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. So 2 things. If you could repeat that address again, just to make sure that we have it, or the street name.
The address of the property we were primarily speaking of is 12456. It's 2 words, Surrey, Surrey, Circle Drive.
Okay, that one, and the one where the trucks are, and we can find out whether or not they're commercial.
I wasn't prepared to talk about that today, but that's Mr. Jupiter's lawn care business. He has 2 large trucks. Most of them, both of those usually have their snow plows 12 months of a year, and they're parked in front across from his street. He also has a very long van. He used to have the name of his business printed in large letters on that. I don't have his address handy, but I can get it to you. It is on Inverness Lane. Yeah.
Inverness?
Yes.
Can you spell that for me?
Oh, Invernes.
Okay. All right.
It's 209 Inverness.
209. Okay. Great. The other, Mr. Edward, did you have anything you wanted to?
Yes, I have one question. I know Councilman Burroughs spoke about DPI in getting up to snuff in the future, but if we could hypothetically think that let's say they're up to snuff in the future today, what would be an inspector's first plan of attack if he saw that property on 12456 Surrey Circle? What's the plan in terms of rectifying the problem?
Cole, you might be able to better address that, or Plachette, because I'm not sure they're inner workings.
Well, I think, Mr. Edward, what you're asking about is, so we're talking about this one home, and then we have the garage door painted, the cars on the lawn. And so I think the first thing would be is to figure out what the actual violations are. And so whether or not these things are a violation is the first thing in terms of the plan, addressing that and figuring out, because there could be things that may need to be changed. So for instance, we talk about the height of the grass in certain areas. So maybe that's an area that we may need to change. And so when we look at planning, those, to me, that will be the first thing, just to try to figure out whether or not these things that we're all talking about are actual violations. So for instance, when we talk about these vehicles and whether or not they're commercial or they're large trucks, sometimes, because in my mind, I may look at something and say, oh, that's commercial, when it has to meet a certain specification to even actually be addressed. And so when we look at the future and what that looks like, Mr. Edward, that is what I think of.
I see.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ms. Plachette, and thank you for your question, Mr. Edward. Basically, it's a matter of the timeline for enforcement. So like I mentioned earlier, when, Mr. Farrington first raised some of these issues with the trash and debris, for example, right? The DPI actually currently has a plan to clean that up because it's not already being abated. That's an issue that's not being abated by the owners. And so they have a plan to clean that up. There are some people who get fines, ignore fines, and there's a whole process that needs to take place to bring them in compliance beyond what, you or I might typically do if we get a fine, which is actually address whatever that issue is. And so sometimes when you have like these habitually non-compliant individuals, there's other methods that need to take place. But this is a property that not only had the trash and debris issue, they had several other issues, including, if I recall correctly, the cars parked on the lawn. And so, there's parking enforcement that deals with stuff in the street, but DPI should be addressing the cars on the line. So the timeline for enforcement is something that I think, to Councilmember Burroughs' point, it would just get a lot better when you guys are not competing with, how many 8 other districts for time and attention, in addition to 2 at-large council members. And I know Councilmember Burroughs has thoughts on the whole at-large piece as well. So there's competing priorities right now for the limited inspectors and the limited workforce at DPI, especially when you compound that with the vacancies. And I think all of this gets faster, hopefully, if you bring in the right personnel. And that's before you get to the cars on the blocks with no tires and, the garage issue. So all of these things, I think, with the inspector, the plan of attack is not necessarily that it's altogether different. It's just swifter. And it's also more, I'm envisioning it as more precise. So where we see things slipping through the crack and people closing cases prematurely without following up. And one thing I always try to say, and sometimes if I can get a hold of an inspector beforehand, I always try to say, please do not close out this request before talking to the individual that actually submitted the request. If we have somebody that's a little more directly accountable to our office, and they know that there are hearings that could come if things are not addressed, and they know that the county executive has made it a priority, and this message is coming from the top down through DPI's leadership, right? Because all this stuff comes from the top. If Councilmember Burroughs said constituent services and community engagement and office management were not a priority, then this thing would be a mess. The office would be a mess and nobody would be picking up the phone, but he's made it a priority. And so that's the service that you're going to get. But when it's not a priority in county leadership, then we see the effects of that, and you all see the effects of that when, you're trying to get things done through DPI and frankly, other agencies. We haven't gotten into some of the other agencies where we've had issues. And I know Mr. Weiss has worked quite a bit on Indian Head Highway related issues as well. So there's a lot of other things that, just hopefully going forward, I'm optimistic like you are, Mr. Weiss, that going forward, things will get a lot better.
Thank you, Colin. Miss Rosemary Weller, I'm not sure if she can actually unmute. And Mr. Ford.
I don't have any. I can add to the complaint to Sharon issue about the almost hitting someone, turning onto Inverness. I was the person driving, and almost hit someone because they were in my blind spot, and I was trying to avoid hitting another pedestrian walking their dog, and they were walking around that truck. And as I made that right-hand turn, I saw them, but I didn't see the person to my left who was also walking their dog, and they were trying to avoid the pedestrian who was walking. And that's how that occurred. That place needs to be moved. That truck needs to be moved. It's been there too long.
Well, thank you. And again, thank you all for taking the time to speak with Councilmember Burroughs. And thank you, Mr. Weiss, for coordinating, helping to get everyone here. We want to definitely wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. We all know we're going to Mr. Carter's house. So tell Mama we coming.
Make an extra pie.
Right.
Put gas in the car. It's in Western Maryland.
Are we going to Western Maryland?
We're going to Mom's house. Yeah.
Give me the address.
We're going to Mom's house. Yep. For that cheesecake, we got to go to Mom's house. Yep.
Yes. So it looks like Colin has dropped a phone number into the chat. Bless you. It's his cell number. It says to feel free to call him anytime. And if you cannot see it, it's 301-957-5014. Okay. God bless you all. And you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, everyone.
You're quite welcome. Bye-bye.
The mask on.